Hello and welcome to episode 36 of Afrikanists Assemble. We are thrilled to have you with us as we dive deeper into another thought-provoking topic. This month we're focusing on the art and science of writing systems and orthography. Every language has its own unique sounds and structure, but not all of them have a written form that relates to them adequately. So we asked our contributors to take on this imaginary challenge. Let's pretend that your mother tongue has never been written before and you've been tasked with designing a writing system for it. Would you adopt an existing script or would you invent a new one? What would your orthography look like and how would it represent the sounds and nuances of your language? From adaptations of existing systems to some new approaches, let's see how our contributors would give their language a written form.
Hello everybody, my name is Pumelela Nyiki. I am from South Africa in the province of Eastern Cape. My mother tongue is Xhosa and I would like to contribute on this month's topic. If I were to design or redesign a system of writing for Xhosa language, I would include the phonetic symbols when writing it. In Xhosa, we have phonetic symbols, but when we write, we don't include those symbols. For me, it would be nice to include them when we write in Xhosa. I have written some few words as an example to support what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Bí ó bá jẹ́ pé èdè mi Yorùbá kò tíì wà ní àkọọ́lẹ̀ tí wọ́n wá ní kí n wá ṣe ètò àkọtọ́ rẹ̀, irú èyí tí à ń lò báyìí náà ni màá ṣètò rẹ̀, àmọ́ ìyàtọ̀ púpọ̀ á wà. Èyí ni àwọn tí màá ṣètò. Màá fi pí dípò pí. Màá lo àmì mákìrọ̀ sí orí àwọn fáwẹ̀lì àránmọ́pè ha, hẹn, in, ọ, han àti kọ́nsọ́nàtì àránmọ́pè àṣesílébù tí yóò yàtọ̀ sí bí a ti ń kọ wọ́n báyìí nínú àkọtọ́. Àwọn ìró èdè tèmi nínú àkọtọ́ yóò jẹ́ ha, bí, dí, ẹ, fi, kí, gbì, hí, ì, jí, kí, lí, mí, ní, ó, ọ, pí, rí, sí, ṣí, tí, ú, wí, yí bí mo ti kọ yìí. Èyí ni yóò dípò àwọn ìró tí à ń lò báyìí tí à ń kọ báyìí. Wọ́n ṣètò kíkọ fáwẹ̀lì àránmọ́pè gẹ́gẹ́ bí a ti ń pè wọ́n ní phonetic àti phonology. Màá fi ha, ẹ, in, ọ, hun dípò bí a ti ń kọ wọ́n báyìí. Wọ́n pààrọ̀ ẹ sí ẹ phonetic báyìí. Wọ́n pààrọ̀ jọ̀ sí èyí. Wọ́n pààrọ̀ ọ sí èyí àti pí sí pí nínú àkọtọ́. Ètò yìí yóò jẹ́ kó rọrùn fún akẹ́kọ̀ọ́ àti àwọn tí ò lè sọ èdè Yorùbá láti ka Yorùbá dáadáa. Yóò yanjú ìṣòro pípe àfàjàfèrègèpè, àṣesí akòyàn ní àfàjàpè, àṣeèṣetán akòyàn àti ìṣòro kí a máa rí àwọn fáwẹ̀lì àránmọ́pè Yorùbá ha, ẹ, in, ọ àti bí ìró fáwẹ̀lì àti kọ́nsọ́nàtì lọ́tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀. Ẹ ṣeun.
This question raises some interesting possibilities and reminds me of an old but still relevant conversation about the connection between written language and the way we perceive the world. But I'm already getting ahead of myself. First, I should say that my mother tongue is English, a global linguistic hegemon, which I think creates an additional challenge when answering this question. After all, changing the orthography of English would impact millions, if not billions, of speakers worldwide, most of whom learn English as a lingua franca, not as a mother tongue. Yet English may be one of the languages that could benefit most from a reworked orthography, considering that written English never underwent any significant standardization during its development. The spelling inconsistencies in English are so ubiquitous that it has become a joke among English language learners and native English speakers alike. As one parody song asks, "Why is the plural of mouse mice, but we can't live in semi-detached heis?" Admittedly, this may be a problem that has to do more with grammar than orthography, but a revised English orthography may be able to address some of these inconsistencies, thereby making English a little more logical and a little more accessible. If English is to continue to be a global lingua franca, why not make it a little easier to learn? The second aspect of my answer, or to put it more accurately, my exploration of this question, has to do with something I hinted at earlier, which is that revising the English orthography could answer an old critique leveled against it by eco-philosopher and phenomenologist David Abram, that modern written language divorces these literate people from their lived experience of the world. For Abram, this disconnect results in real and preventable catastrophes like climate change, mass extinctions, and epidemics. In his 1996 book, The Spell of the Sensuous, he traces the rise of written language in the West, looking at early Hebrew and Greek alphabets specifically, and how these orthographies coincided with a rise in detachment from and ambivalence toward the more than human world. To greatly oversimplify his thesis, Abram argues that while the Hebrew orthography still retained some of its sensuousness or connection to the embodied act of speaking and living in a world full of sensations and experiences, the much faster development of the Greek alphabet, which borrowed characters from the Hebrew alphabet, began the process of linguistic abstraction that would eventually lead to what he characterizes as a violent disconnect from the more than human world. In other words, the more abstract orthographies became, the more the locus of meaning shifted from the world, the landscapes, phenomena, and sensations of lived experience, to the word, or the objectification of language. This abstraction or objectification represented a break in what produced or conveyed meaning. No longer did humanity find meaning or authority in the interaction with the non-human world, rather, authority existed solely in writing. But it isn't writing as a general technology or process of meaning-making with which Abram finds fault. He sees writing as naturally arising from the interaction between humans and their environments, a natural continuation from the signs we can, quote, read in the terrain. Moreover, he argues that in the textual landscape of the more than human world, writing is not unique to humans. Just like the patterns insects leave on leaves or the scent left by wolves marking their territory, human writing leaves a mark inscribed with meaning, if we can remain embodied enough to decipher it. What does this have to do with creating a new orthography for English? Well, if we take Abram's hypothesis seriously, revising the English orthography in such a way that reinscribes that interplay between humans and the world around them could lead to a renewed sense of connection between humans and the natural world, a connection that has ethical implications. Language reflects our values back to us in many ways. So just imagine a visual orthography that once again reflects a deeply interconnected and entangled world.
If I am to design a system of writing for my mother tongue and anthology, I shall not undermine an existing system of writing if it will aid efficiency and effectiveness in what I have to do. I shall study the word component of my language, which is made up of vowels, diphthongs, tritons, and consonants for a word to be formed and pronounced. In my mother tongue, there are 7 functional vowels. These are A, E, I, O, U. These are followed by the diphthongs, a combination of 2 vowels in one. Examples are A, Ao, Ui, Iu, etc. The consonants are also sometimes a combination of 2, which are endemic in my language, with the following examples: GB pronounced B, KH, H, BH, B, GH, G, MH, me, etc. For instance, it takes a combination of two consonants and vowels to form a word, e.g., A, KH, O, AO. Single consonants and vowels can also form a word, e.g., Esan, E-S-O-N. A combination of double consonants and diphthongs can also form a word, e.g., Oserai, Obio. The following tritons and double consonants are seen in Idiahawa, Osehewa, and Idia-ehile. Therefore, the understanding of the combination of vowels, diphthongs, tritons, consonants, and double consonants enhances prescriptive and descriptive orthography in my language and any other language. This understanding is capable of enabling the formation of names for some scientific materials and practices. In the course of this discourse, I have formed these words: Udumuri for bomb, Oka avunuto for caterpillar, and Omohenhu for oxygen. These are words that were not in Esan, my language vocabulary. This particular ozone has the potency to improve progressive ontology for languages if further researched.
If I were asked to design or to write my language if it had never been written before, I think some of the things that I would put in that language, first of all, the alphabet that the Kipsigis language that uses is largely borrowed from English. So we wouldn't really be forming new characters. We would just be using the alphabet, the characters that are there in the alphabet, to form words, sentences, and phrases. So one of the things, first of all, that I would start with is how to create the vocabulary, creating the vocabulary for the language design. And then, of course, number two would be setting the rules, that is the grammar, on how to form phrases, how to form clauses, and how to form sentences. Because also how words are constructed is maybe adopted from the English language, but there is a difference in the pronunciation, since while English has silent letters, Kipsigis does not. So we would look at, therefore, how that the words are formed and how they are used. And then, of course, one of the other things that will be very important is the implementation of this language, how we adopt it and how it will be used. So there has to be some kind of an education on how the language will be formed, on how the language will be used, how the language will be written, of course. That is what one of the things is, to define the language usage. How do we use this language that has been formed? So there has to be some ways in which people are supposed to be educated on how to use the language. So the implementation stage is very important. One of the other things that is also very important is the pronunciations and, of course, the intonations. Because now, if you're writing a new language, then you have to show, for example, there is a word in Kipsigis, moet, and moet. The spelling is similar. Like kind of like is it the synonyms in English? The spelling is very similar, but the pronunciation is different, and so the meaning is also quite different. So we have to talk about the rules of intonation and the rules of pronunciations.
Igbo language is my mother tongue. It is chiefly spoken around the southeastern part of Nigeria. Igbo language belongs to the Benue-Congo branch of the Niger-Congo language family. If asked to design a system of writing for Igbo language, I will retain the existing orthography designed by S.E. Onwu Committee of 1961. And the orthography reads, A, B, Ch, D, F, G, B, Wehi, I, E, J, K, P, Wele, Memeng, Wen, Ni, O, Ope, Re, Se, She, T, U, O, V, W, Z. There are 36 alphabets in number. They have 8 vowels and 28 consonants. There have been arguments on the need to capture some dialect variations in Igbo orthography. In like manner, I've particularly noticed the half-open front vowel e in Igbo is usually realized as e as in ero, ego, or ebo, ero, mushroom, ego, money, and ebo, neighborhood, or e as in efe, cloth, ede, cocoyam, ebe, beetle. So my position is to separate these sounds and give them different orthographic representations. I suggest that the e sound, as in efe, ede, and ebe, be represented as e, that is, the same symbol but with a diacritic mark under it, while where it sounds a as in ego, ero, or ebo retains the old symbol as it is in the orthography. In this same way, I shall also suggest that the voice approximant nasalized roll r be separated from the non-nasalized form, since the nasalization is able to bring about a difference in meaning, as in ara, madness. But when the re in ara is nasalized, the ara becomes ara, meaning breast. My idea is that the r in ara, madness, should remain as it was in the orthography, while the nasalized r as in ara, breast, should also go with a diacritic mark under the r to differentiate it from the existing one in the orthography.
My name is Deng. I am a writer and cultural manager from South Sudan. If I am to write or to make orthography of my mother tongue, which is Luo, the Luo of Bahr al-Ghazal, I believe I would make it from right to left, and not because this is a new system I'm going to invent, but it is actually how some African languages are written, like the hieroglyphs, like even also the Amharic and many other languages. Also, Arabic and Hebrew are written the same way, and all these systems were taken from Africa. So it will be a good way of reinventing the old ways of writing and also making the mother tongue to be written. Unfortunately, time didn't save me to make maybe some examples, but I would think of making the good ones that are easy to memorize, easy to read, and also easy to pronounce. Most African languages now are written in, that Latin way, the Latin alphabet, which is, in my opinion, is really very wrong, because we also, some years back, we had some ways of communicating, some ways of writing our language. So I believe this is the way that I would write my mother tongue. Thank you so much.
This episode on creating a new writing system for my mother tongue is very interesting, as it borders on returning to the roots of written tradition. It is important to know that inasmuch as it can be an Herculean task to come up with a new orthography, apart from what has been in existence before, one can posit that we cannot erase the subtle influence of existing orthography from one's memory in a bid to creating new ones, and as such, it will to a large extent reflect in the creation of new orthography for one's mother tongue. I speak Igala from Kogi State, Nigeria, and my language is already influenced by the trade interaction of the pre-colonial and colonial era. Hence, in creating an orthography for Igala language as my mother tongue, I will come up with the following alphabet: A, Ba, Wa, Lia, Lo, Go, Ti, U, Ko, Lo, O, Ta, Ka, Ki, Ni, Du, Da, Che, U, Yo, We, Be, E, Bo, Be. To create a sentence with this supposed Igala alphabet will be: Awa lo ti ukolo, we are going to work. Otakada chenyogbe, education is very good. Liaduwa lo ti ugbokelo, come and take us to where you are going. Abeka taku weache, this is how you speak before you act. Echegbe kewa, thank you for coming. From the above examples, you could see that this new orthography is being influenced by both the English alphabet and the Yoruba sound model. This is why creating a new orthography will always be influenced by previous experiences and interaction with other existing cultures and orthography.
Ajụjụ mbụ bụ gịnị bụ usoro edide? Usoro edide bụ usoro a na-agbaso edetu asụsụ. Ọ na-arụtụ aka n'usoro iwu nke gụnyere nsupe, iwu nchịkwa ụtọ asụsụ, akara edemede, dịrịzie gawa. Gịnị bụ nkepụta usoro edide? Nkepụta usoro edide pụtara ikepụta usoro a ga-agbaso edetu asụsụ. Ọ bụrụ na ị chọọ ikepụta usoro edide nke olu nne gị, ị ga-eji nke dịbụ adị? Mba, kama aga m eji ha mere ihe nlereanya maọbụ were ha mere nyochagharị agụmagụ. Kedu ụdị usoro edide ị ga-ekepụta? Aga m ekepụta usoro edide nke mkpụrụ edemede, ya bụ nke ụdị ume na mgbochi ume mebere. Nke otu mkpụrụ edemede ga-abụ otu ụda. Ndị mụ na ha ga-eso arụ ọrụ gụnyere ndị nkwalite olu nne anyị na-anụ ọkụ n'obi, ndị ọkachamara n'asụsụ na ndị gọọmenti. Ndị nkwalite olu nne anyị na-anụ ọkụ n'obi na ndị ọkachamara n'asụsụ ga-ejikọ aka ọnụ nwee mkpebi gbasara olu nne nke ga-abụ asụsụ izugbe. Ndị ọkachamara n'asụsụ ga-eweta ngwa mkpọpụta ma nweta data site na ndị nwe asụsụ. Ha dekọtacha, ha tapịa ka enwee ike ịnweta ụda asụsụ. Ha ga-esi na ngwa ọrụ na data depụta mkpụrụ edemede. Ha ga-edetecha ụda niile pụtara ìhè. Ha ga-etinye ndị nnọchite gọọmenti maka ntụziaka na ikwupụta ọdịmma usoro ejide ahụ. Lee ọmụmaatụ mkpụrụ edemede alfabeti Igbo m. Ọ bụrụ na ile anya na mkpụrụ edemede a, ị ga-achọpụta na o nwere mkpụrụ edemede ndị bụ ntụpọ n'elu maọbụ n'ala, dịka ị, nye, ọ, ụ. Ntụpọ ndị a dị ezigbo mkpa ma bụrụkwa akụkụ mkpụrụ edemede ndị ahụ. Ọ bụrụ na ha ebughị ntụpọ ndị ahụ, mpụtara mkpụrụ okwu maọbụ ahịrịokwu ha nọ na ya ga-emebi. Lee ọmụmaatụ ndị a: ọkọ, rashes; oko, aha obodo na steeti Anambra; ọtụ, vagina; otu, one; ụtụ, weevil; utu, penis; ọṅụ, happy; ọnụ, mouth. Igbo bụ asụsụ ụdaolu. Nke a mere na mkpọju okwu na-emebi mpụtara okwu ahụ, ọkacha mgbe okwu ahụ nwe otu nsupe dịka akwa, bridge; akwa, egg; akwa, cloth; akwa, cry. Nkepụta usoro edide gụnyere nkepụta usoro edide asụsụ site n'ijikwa usoro mkpọpụta, ụtọ asụsụ, akara edemede na nsupe asụsụ ahụ. Ndewonu.
It will be very difficult to pretend that Yoruba, which is my mother tongue, has not been written. But it is also good to go into the history of what happened in Sierra Leone when Bishop Ajayi Crowther and others got together to think of the best orthography to represent a tonal language like Yoruba. It is a language, like everybody knows, that the way it sounds, it's the way it's written. It's very unlike English, where you start with A and you go to A. In Yoruba, you start with A and you use it as Aja. In English, you say E for Edward, but we say E as in idiot, Igi. So it's a language that has already been taken care of in the way it's represented. And so we will not be looking for other ways of writing, but we would want to deepen how we say it. For us, orthography is not the issue, because Yoruba is first and foremost a spoken language. The beauty of it is in how the words are made, how the sentences are constructed, and how you can have one word that would have multiple meanings depending on the accent marks on the word. A word like Ogun is 20. Ogun is the god of iron. And then you can also stretch it to say Ogun, which is medicine. So for us, as at now, it's, once a dream is fulfilled, it is very difficult to keep it still as a dream. the Yoruba language is now going through other issues in its linguistic performances.
Those were all the imaginary writing systems and orthographies our contributors shared with us this month. Which approach did you find most intriguing? And how would you go about designing a script for your own language? We'd love to see your thoughts and even your own writing system designs in the comments below. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Afrikanists Assemble.